And it now gives me pleasure to have Kevin Pegels to come up, who is the Vice President of Global Supply Chain for Illumina. So take it away, Kevin.
Thank you, Dave, and welcome everybody. Let me try to share my screen here. I think it's disabled on your end, Dave.
No, you should be able to.
Here it comes. All right. Are you able to see my screen, Dave?
Yep.
Fantastic. Let me get into full view here. Just give me a moment here. Display settings. Okay, that should be great. Let me get rid of the pictures. Wonderful, thanks, Dave. Great to be here again with BSMA. This is actually my 10th conference. I'm probably, if not the old timer, one of the old timers here. And you know, as all supply chain leaders, I have spent a lot of my time with my team over the past 9-10 months dealing with COVID, from making sure our employees are safe, whether they're working in the warehouse, in the plant, or at home, working with suppliers, working with transportation carriers, working with customers. It's been an enormous amount of time, but as supply chain leaders, I really think it's important that we're always thinking about vision and strategy. And even though there is a crisis today, and it's going to take us a few years to get out of it, we have to be thinking 5 years out. Where are we going as a supply chain team to support the organization? And really today, I wanted to just give a quick background of Illumina, and I think Paul did a great job already. You know, I was here 4 years ago talking about Vision 2020, so I want to give a quick report card on that, then jump into some of our challenges and really talk a little bit about where the Illumina supply chain is headed over the next 5 years. So just you know, who is Illumina? And you know, Paul talked about this a little bit already. We're a global leader in DNA sequencing and microarray-based solutions. Our mission is, you know, improve human health by unlocking the power of the genome. And our technology today is responsible for generating over 90% of the world's sequencing data. Our instruments, consumables, our services organization is really leading the way around sequencing the genome and driving insights to drive better healthcare and cheaper healthcare. Our revenue is about $3.5 billion, greater than 7,000 employees. We were founded about 20 years ago. We're based in San Diego, but as you can imagine, we are around the world. And, you know, just want to start with, you know, how did we do? A little report card. So for those that heard me 4 years ago, this bullseye should look very familiar. This was back in early 2016. We came up with this vision, you know, that really is not attainable, 100% availability of our products every day. And nobody can really get to that. But we kind of had this vision 4 years ago about really focusing on the customer, segmenting our customers, understanding what each customer needs. We had these 5 strategies around foundational excellence. So getting to the basics of planning, logistics, and procurement, and making sure we're leveraging our tools, looking end to end from suppliers to customers, digging into the flow, the infrastructure and flow of our products, from suppliers to customers. Do we have the right manufacturing plans, the right manufacturing strategy, the right warehouse logistics strategy, clinical supply chain excellence? Historically, sequencing was heavily focused in research, but now it's heavily focused in the clinical lab for non-invasive prenatal testing, oncology, tumor screening. So, you know, are we set up right from a clinical perspective? And then are we building the right team in supply chain? And I'm really glad to say that my team has done a fantastic job. If you look at that box over to the right, we took, you know, on time to request from 79 to, you know, into the 90s. We took on time to commit of every order into the mid 90s. We took our supply chain complaints and decreased them by 2 times. We did a much better job in inventory. We're driving COGS, material cost reduction year over year, and really reducing our E&O and scrap. So, really great job by my team. We've definitely driven a lot of value for Illumina and the company, and in turn our customers. But you can't rest on your laurels in supply chain, as we all know. The CEO and the CFO are always asking for more. So we kind of decided we've got to look over the next 5 years, and where is Illumina going to go from a supply chain perspective? And I just wanted to throw some facts out there about our supply chain today. And we have about 500 plus direct material suppliers, about 500 million in direct material spend, 5,000 unique materials. We sell about 1,500 saleable kits, and a kit in Illumina language is usually a flow cell and a number of boxes of reagents. So that 1,500 saleable kits explodes to probably 7,000 manufacturable products. We have about 400 million in inventory, about 4 manufacturing sites, plus a lot of CMOs. And we have tremendous cold chain challenges. We store the boxes that go in our kits at multiple temperatures, and often our customers receive product at 3 different temperatures. We have 2,000 customers in 80 countries, 10 DCs in our global network, and like my old days in consumer products goods, the bullwhip effect that Dave mentioned, we have a huge hockey stick each quarter where we've trained our customers to wait for the deals, and then they hit us hard the last month. So definitely some challenges. And to top it all off, we're probably the biggest startup company in the world. If you look at our CAGR of growth over the past 7 years, we're 10 to 15% revenue growth a year, and about a 70% gross margin. So we're very profitable, but there's a lot of competition starting to enter this field. And if we want to maintain that growth, supply chain has to be a key enabler of that. So where are we going? So my team and I developed kind of this vision mission of 2025, where, again, it's focused on the customers. And again, it's all about how do we be innovative in supply chain? How do we be kind of next gen in the solutions we provide to our customers? And there's really 6 breakthrough objectives that I'm going to go through in more detail on the subsequent slides, where we went really deep into each of these around what does it mean? What are the metrics with each of these? What are the tactics and projects we need to do? What are the skill sets we need in our organization to be successful here? And, at a high level, the breakthrough objectives were around CSR, around compliance, around collaboration with partners, around scalability and efficiency, around the big D on digital, and about people focused. So let me kind of go a little deeper on each one of these for you. Starting with corporate social responsibility. And, every company's talking about this, but not every supply chain I've seen has this front and center. And we think it's really important to manage our resources efficiently, ethically, and responsibly. And where the Illumina supply chain plays in a number of areas. One is the environment. So we have manufacturing plants, we use a lot of transportation. How do we focus on reducing our emissions, carbon footprint, and really managing our real estate, water usage, that kind of thing? Supplier network. Are we maintaining, how do we drive a more diverse supplier network? How do we make sure our suppliers are thinking green and thinking sustainability? How do we include that in our kind of policies and agreements with suppliers? Packaging. So we use a lot of packaging, and historically it's probably the biggest customer complaint for Illumina is all the packaging customers have to throw away. So we've done some major breakthroughs on reusable containers recently, and compostable, recyclable packaging that is not only going to save us money, but also tremendously reduce our emissions and drive a huge customer experience improvement. It's I'm one of those firm believers that you can do great things in CSR and drive great return for the company. So a lot of work happening here. We have a long way to go. We just launched our first company-wide sustainability report this year, but we're definitely off and running and leading from a supply chain perspective within the company. Another area that we don't always talk about in supply chain, but it's really important, is compliance. And when you think about compliance, supply chain is the one organization that touches everything. You think about trade compliance, and trade compliance to me is not a cost center. It's actually a commercial driver. If you didn't have trade compliance right, you're not going to be able to sell in a lot of countries or receive product from countries. BCP, so everyone knows, business continuity planning was always shoved in a drawer and got dusty in your desk. But given the pandemic, it's clearly hugely important. I would give Illumina, a C on BCP planning. We had some plans ready, but we kind of had to, dance pretty quickly back in December, January when this COVID started to take off. But how do we get better there over the next 5 years? SOX compliance. So all around the financial side, internal controls, big focus for us there. Policy. We drive more policies around purchasing, around, quality policies. And, this is an important area. Clinical. There's, everyone knows the regulatory guidelines are ever changing. There's IVDR in Europe that we're going through right now, like others, that is quite taxing. So how do we continue to focus there as a supply chain? And lastly, toll. We leverage toll manufacturing process through our legal entity in Great Britain. So how do we make sure we're good on that? So again, compliance is definitely a key breakthrough objective for us. The third breakthrough objective I want to hit is around growth. And here where we're really focused is in just a few areas, and it's around collaboration to drive growth. So starting in the upper right, we are completely overhauling our supplier segmentation strategy and really thinking through who is a strategic partner. And a strategic partner to Illumina is someone who is, is technology savvy and is bringing us the innovation we need. They perform really well from a quality on-time delivery perspective, and their cost is at the right level. And given our growth, our strategic suppliers are going to do really well with us, but you have to earn it. And we're definitely going to try to go deeper there. In the upper left-hand corner, there are huge numbers of partners in the sequencing space. There's a lot of companies with library prep that are coming out that want to partner with us. China, there's huge partnership opportunities for us. How do we get better in supply chain to enable these partnerships, make sure the agreements make sense, make sure we get to market quickly? A lot of work that we need to do there. New and emerging markets. We are launching products like crazy. Like I would say probably 15 to 20% of our sales at least are products that are less than a year old. So, and we're constantly moving into new markets. How do we make sure we're launching in new markets cost effectively, efficiently, compliantly is a key area of focus for us. Scale and efficiency. So this is a big one, and we're 3.5 billion in revenue right now, with ambitions to get to that $5-6 billion number not too far out in the future. And we're not going to be able to keep hiring lots of people every year, adding new DCs, adding new plants. So how do we do more with less? How do we really drive efficiency and scale within the supply chain? And how we're going after it is let's get everybody the basics. Let's make sure people understand continuous improvement and how to do rapid problem solving. How do we think about playbooks and visual management, exception management from a planning and buying perspective? How do we think about process improvement predictive modeling, and thinking about lean tools. And there's some examples here that you'll see of some projects that we're doing around batch optimization, guided buying, consolidation in transit, and other things. Then we're, probably 2-3 years from now, we'll be evolving to system enhancement automation. How do we get into suggestive ordering? WMS is an opportunity for us, Pick to Light, supplier collaboration, SCC, in Ariba and SAP. And by 2025, we want to have that optimized network from a scale and efficiency standpoint, where we're constantly communicating via, electronic tools, control towers from suppliers to customers. There's vendor managed inventory, suppliers to us to customers. We're optimizing inventory and turns. There's control towers in place. That's really where we want to go. And there are other companies that are doing this today, but this is where we need to get to support the company's growth. The last thing is the digital supply chain. And I know this is a big section of the meeting later, so I won't spend too much time on this, but we have a huge vision around digital. And let me kind of walk you through our vision, starting in the lower right. We sell instruments. We sell, I don't know, we've got probably 15,000, 20,000 instruments placed around the world. I would say half those instruments have software where we can monitor how often they're running, how well they're running, how many reagents they're consuming, and we can also monitor the performance of various components within the instrument. So think about that value of that information from a supply chain perspective. That kind of information allows you to send a spare part to the customer before they even know they need it, because we can pick up that the imaging module is starting to not work like it's supposed to. This will help us get into predictive demand and data analytics to really understand consumption patterns. And then rather than the customers have to order, we can place orders for them and ship product right to them. So not only do they manage their inventories very tight, we manage our inventories tight. So keep kind of going around the semicircle here from the right. With that kind of information, we can then deploy product to our DCs just in time. We can move to just in time manufacturing as consumption is happening at the customer. We're replenishing their inventory. That signal keeps going back in real time to the plant. That signal then is going back in real time to inbound transportation and the suppliers. I mean, if you think about the customer experience benefits of this, but the enormous efficiencies within supply chain from a cycle time reduction, lead time reduction, inventory savings, cost savings, it's massive. It's massive. And we have the power to do it. And we're in the process of implementing all the processes and systems to make it happen. The last part of the Vision 2025 is around people. And it's probably the most important. And to be honest, as a supply chain leader, this is where I spend most of my time, really kind of getting my team engaged and inspiring them to innovate and thrive. And our goal is really a high-performing and engaged workforce with low turnover and right people in the right roles. And we've kind of set up like 7 areas where we're going really deep around recruiting and onboarding the right people to Illumina, managing the talent, job rotation programs, development plans, thinking more about certification. I mean, should everybody in supply chain be APIC certified? Maybe they should, and maybe we should make that mandatory for everybody in Illumina's supply chain. We're setting up our own leadership development program within supply chain. Huge focus given just all of the struggles we've had this year as a society around diversity and inclusion. We are going very deep here, not only on gender diversity, but ethnic diversity. And also, the classic thing around when you're interviewing somebody, the question is always around, do they fit the culture? Well, that's important, but how about, are they adding to the culture? Are they going to add something to the supply chain culture at Illumina to allow us to enable Vision 2025 is something that we're asking ourselves. And of course, recognition and rewards. Supply chain, we're often, nobody knows what we're doing. We're behind the scenes. No news is good news. But we do drive tremendous value for our companies. So how do we make sure we're recognizing and rewarding supply chain practitioners throughout the globe? And lastly, I just wanted to share kind of what some of our targets are. Throwing some numbers at you, because I know supply chain, we love numbers. And, a couple things here I want to call out. Most companies have about 80% employee engagement. We're in the high 80s. We want to get to 95. We really want our employees engaged. Not many supply chain organizations I've seen in the world have gender diversity about 50%. We're south of that, but our goal is to get there. Customer. As you can see on the customer side, we're driving our OTR and OTC even higher because customers demand it as they manage their working capital better. We're really going hard on reusable containers, recyclable, compostable containers, getting that waste down, not only for sustainability, but our customers really demand it. What is supply chain without financial metrics? Turns, cost savings year over year, efficiency of employees, and then quality. How are we doing on complaints around supply chain, like late deliveries, mispicks, all that other good stuff? And CAPAs, always worried about CAPAs from a regulatory perspective. But that's kind of the take on Illumina, where we've been from a supply chain perspective, where we're going. And again, to me, I think that the key thing is everyone is so worried about COVID, and we have to be worried about COVID. But we also need to be thinking about where we're going to go over the next 3 to 5 years and engaging with our C-level executives to make sure we're partnering with them to enable the company to meet their goals. And with that, I'll take some questions.
Yeah, so Kevin, we have one question that came in. Many clinical studies don't have reliable historical data. It looks like you've done a lot of historical data in lead times, patient demand, and etc. How does Illumina address those challenges?
Around lead time management?
Yeah.
Let me see if I can see the question. Yeah, so we're constantly looking at our lead times in terms of, the customer. Some customers now want same day shipment of orders. Order comes in at 9, they want it shipped at 10, they want it the same day. So we're constantly trying to understand which customers demand those types of lead times. We're working hard within our manufacturing areas as well around manufacturing lead times and understanding where we can shorten them to be more flexible and responsive. And if you think about the vision I described about the instrument performance driving the entire supply chain, the only way you get the benefits of that is if you have really short lead times throughout the rest of the system. So manufacturing lead times are a big focus. I think suppliers is another one that I think some speakers talked about earlier. If you partner and collaborate really close with your suppliers and make it a win-win, you can significantly reduce lead times with your partners. If you force the suppliers to cut costs, they're usually going to push back really hard on you with longer lead times so they can earn some type of margins. I would be careful with that. But yeah, lead times are definitely constantly in the conversation.
So are you able to bring, I think Illumina does a lot of clinical. How do you move the clinical to the commercial supply chain? Is it easy or?
Yeah, it's a great question. So to be honest, Illumina, it's definitely been a challenge for us. Historically, we grew tremendously as an RUO company, research only. And that's not under the purview of FDA or anything like that. But as the cost of sequencing has come down, and the value of sequencing in non-invasive prenatal care, rare undiagnosed diseases, oncology tumor screening, and now oncology blood screening, the clinical market has boomed. So we've had to transform the company, Dave, from a, regulatory standpoint. How do we make sure we design products, design controls, design history files? How do we set up our purchasing controls? How do we have complaint management systems in place? It's been a transformation for Illumina, and I think, as Paul will admit, because he's leading that at Illumina right now for GQO, we're not there yet, but we're getting there. But that's where our growth is, Dave, and we have to get good at that. And the biggest challenge right now that we talked about last year was IVDR in Europe, which is some really much stricter regulations than I've ever seen, and the race is on to get there first. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up as well in your talk about inclusion and diversity, and because I think that's something we forget. But are you seeing now in Illumina, or maybe your experience, because we go a long way back, is supply chain finally becoming a C-suite issue, or in part of the C-suite?
Yeah, my boss is the senior VP of Global Quality and Operations, and he reports to the CEO. But I have regular engagement with the CEO around some of these initiatives that I just talked about, some of these strategies. I engage with a number of my peers, like the chief commercial officer, the chief product officer, the chief marketing officer. I think it's really, if we as leaders in supply chain want to be at the table with the C-suite executives, we have to go lead and do it. We've got to get it. We've got to meet with them, work with them, understand their needs, try to, advocate for where we're driving. We have to get out there and do that versus waiting to be asked to the dance. We have to be aggressive around that, and that's what I'm doing at Illumina.
So, we know that some of the smaller players that are emerging are really flexible and agile. Can you comment on how Illumina is able to continue to be agile and flexible compared to some of the smaller players in the market?
Yeah, so we have a particular culture, and I've worked at 6 companies, and the culture at Illumina is very unique in that it's incredibly collaborative. However, we move extremely fast. We go from idea of product to launch in probably a couple years. We're launching 5-10 products a year, and most companies will, before they launch a product, they dot all the I's, cross the T's, make sure it's fully ready, launch it. We do the opposite. We launch products, and then we fine-tune them after they launch with our key customers. That's a completely different strategy, and a lot of suppliers, believe it or not, can't work with us, can't figure that out because we're moving so fast. And what that also means, Dave, is we're constantly juggling and changing priorities. So you really have to be, one of our values is move fast, embrace change. It's incredible pace. And if you can't handle it, you're not going to last long at Illumina. It's too.
That I think it is a fantastic closing comment, because Kevin, over the years, you certainly have brought agility, flexibility, inclusion, diversity into the organization that you have led. And it's always a pleasure to hear from you here at our BSMA conference. Thank you so much.
That was my pleasure, David. Thanks. Take care. Thank you.
You too.